Welcome to this webinar in the Financial Abuse Awareness Series. My name is Bill Mitchell. This series is part of the Financial Protections Project, co-designed by the Queensland Government, Caxton Legal Centre and Townsville Community Law. The series is an online continuing professional development program that aims to raise financial industry awareness about the financial abuse of older persons. Before we begin, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This presentation is number 6 in the 7 skills modules, and it's about responding to financial abuse. The slides are not read verbatim, but they are paraphrased for emphasis. They are designed to be standalone, readable modules and contain references for deeper learning. So let's begin. Before we begin, let's take a moment to think about this statement from Justin. Any intervention to address elder abuse must consider the older person's relationship to the perpetrator and how this relationship may be affected by any action that is taken. This point is essential in thinking about responding to financial abuse. Interventions and responses cannot exist in a vacuum outside the older person's life course and their autonomy. Responses must be tailored to the particular circumstances of each older person. There is really no one-size-fits-all approach that will work. Responding to financial abuse can come from a broad array of options. Choosing which ones suit each older person is a skill. It's important to ensure that each older person, whether at risk or experiencing abuse, gets the information and services they need. That's just what an age-friendly society promises. Choosing which response to rely upon or what combination of responses can be complicated, and in many cases, advisors will need to make a referral to a specialist service. In the box on the right-hand side, you can see the learning outcomes for participants in this session. Everybody's Business is a companion document to the National Plan to respond to the abuse of older Australians. The National Plan establishes a framework under which governments will prioritise and report on activity to reduce the prevalence and impact of elder abuse. Everybody's Business describes the range of work already underway. It describes measures directly funded by the government as well as other initiatives, and it's an important document to be aware of. Before looking at advisors' responses, it's important to consider the broad range of responses currently available. We use the applied ecological approach to consider these appropriate responses, and we look at them from 4 perspectives. Firstly, the individual responses. Secondly, interventions around relationships, particularly those of persons of trust or close social networks, community responses, and then societal responses. So individual responses using the applied ecological response, or approach, I should say, can include informal responses and more formal responses. For an older person, it can include getting information and advice, engaging in legal assistance, including legal documents and legal interventions. It can include advocacy, case management, support and counselling. Here's an industry example where the Financial Protection Service establishes a collaborative referral pathway that allows the referral of an older person to an appropriate service provider. This can include referral pathways to information and advice, which is the financial literacy service, or financial counsellors or accountants, legal information and advice, including legal information services and lawyers, and social work services, including social support services and social workers. So there's an example of the sorts of referrals that could be made for an individual response. An industry example includes creating protective legal documents. And in Queensland, this can include powers of attorney, advanced health directives and statements of choices, wills, family agreements and advanced care plans. Each document acts as a protective tool in a different but generally complementary way. These documents can be drafted by Queensland lawyers for a fee, and in the cases of wills for free and powers of attorney for a fee by the Public Trustee of Queensland. The Office of Advanced Care Planning can provide assistance with the process of advanced care planning. The individual responses can include a multidisciplinary approach. So you can see that older persons may need a range of responses, including legal support, financial advice, health services, case management, and social and other supports. It's important to have a multidisciplinary approach because it can address the complex and varied needs of older persons who are experiencing financial abuse. An industry model of a multidisciplinary approach is the social worker lawyer integrated model used by the seniors legal and support services. It takes a human rights approach to older persons' rights, and it recognises the interconnectedness of legal and social issues. Individual case management and advocacy services can include older persons organisations, specialist advocacy agencies, and combined health and support services. An industry example of that is the Older Persons Advocacy Network advocacy program. It's a free, independent and confidential service that focuses on supporting older people and their representatives to raise and address issues relating to interacting with Commonwealth-funded aged care services. It seeks to ensure that aged care consumers understand and exercise their rights and participate to the maximum degree possible. They achieve this through the delivery of individual advocacy support. There are 9 state and territory-based organisations that form the network, and you can go to the link there to have a look at their network website. The second tier of responses is within the relationship. This is the relationship of trust or the close social networks. This can include interventions such as family or group mediation, and it can also include interventions for the person of trust. That can include psychological support, care support and respite, legal support, and support with housing, mental health, financial, substance and gambling abuse issues. Another industry example are relationship services. So, for example, Relationships Australia, Queensland can offer elder relationship services, and this can give families support and tools to work together to overcome differences and resolve conflicts. The third tier is the community responses. And this can include responses to financial abuse that include community interventions such as agency responses, the public guardian, the public trustee, banks and helplines. It can include civil remedies, legal actions through statutory agencies, for example, through community legal centres, and it can include criminal remedies through statutory agencies such as the Queensland Police Service. Another industry example of a community response is the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit, which is a statewide helpline. This was established in 1997. The unit is funded by the Department of Communities to provide a statewide service to respond to the abuse of older persons in Queensland. It operates a statewide telephone information support and referral service for anyone experiencing abuse, suspecting or witnessing the abuse of an older person. The helpline number is located down on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Another community response is the Elder Abuse Prevention Unit's Peer Support Program, which provides a statewide multidisciplinary peer support network. I'll leave you a moment to read that bullet points about how the peer support network works. Community responses can also include civil responses. Civil remedies can include a range of legal actions, including equitable remedies, contractual disputes, and even applications to specialist courts like the Family Court. Civil remedies can include a range of agencies and actions, including compensation under the Powers of Attorney Act for a loss caused by an attorney's failure to comply with the Act, actions under the Public Guardian Act, and systemic advocacy can also be undertaken by the public advocate. It's important to be aware of the powers of each of these agencies. They can provide remedies for older persons who've suffered financial abuse. Community responses can also include criminal justice responses, such as police intervention for family violence, protection orders. As we said earlier, this has got to be within a relevant relationship, and the conduct must include economically abusive conduct as defined in the Act. Of course, the Domestic and Family Violence Protection Act also includes remedies for other forms of violence if an older person is experiencing them. It doesn't just only apply to economic or financial abuse. Police and prosecutorial interventions in criminal offences can also occur. This could include breaches of orders made under the Domestic and Family Violence Act. It can also include charges for misappropriation, theft and fraud, and neglect. It also can include prosecution for breaches of the Powers of Attorney Act. Statutory investigations and interventions can also be called upon under the Powers of Attorney Act and the Public Guardian Act. In both these cases, statutory agencies have the ability to investigate, intervene, and take court action if there have been breaches of the Act. The Public Guardian Act includes a specific protection of protecting an adult from neglect, exploitation, or abuse, but this generally applies to those who have diminished or limited decision-making capacity. Here's an industry example of community response, which is the criminal justice response of the Public Guardian. Public Guardian doesn't replace the role of the police, but it does investigate alleged abuse from the perspective of whether the current decision-making arrangements providing an older person are appropriate, and are they providing proper assistance or protection from the abuse. They will refer allegations of a criminal nature to the Queensland Police Service if they discover them. And then the societal responses, the fourth level. The public advocate engages in systemic advocacy on behalf of older persons. Systems advocacy is focused on influencing and changing systems, including legislation, policy, and practice. This is done to promote and improve opportunities and outcomes for people with impaired decision-making capacity. A good example is the public advocates report and work on the use of restrictive practices in aged care. Before we leave, think about effective responses for financial abuse using the applied ecological approach. And think about, do you understand actions or referrals that can be taken by older persons? Do you understand relationship interventions that can prevent financial abuse or deal with abuse? And do you understand community agency supports and mechanisms that can intervene and respond in cases of financial abuse? Thanks for listening to this webinar series. Feel free to download the PDF file for future reference. The next module is the final module in the series, which is professional responses to financial abuse. Thanks for listening.